Well, all right, world religion students, we are going to be continuing on our lesson here, focusing on the patriarchal beginning of Judaism. Um, Patriarchy typically refers to a ruling family. In this case, we're talking about the male ancestry of Judaism. So we're going to start with Abraham. So the heir of the patriarch is somewhere around 2000 to 1700 BCE. So Abraham is considered the father of Judaism, the original patriarch. He has a revelation, a profound and life-altering vision from God. Abraham leaves and heads to Canaan, which is the current Israel. Abraham's revelation is as such. According to Genesis 12, 1 to 2, go forth from your native land and from your father's house to the land I will show you. I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And that would be a quote from God in his revelation to Abraham. So, a little bit more information here about Abraham. Abraham, I'm the father of Judaism because, well, three main parts. Abraham promotes the idea of a chosen people. He promotes the idea of a promised land and focuses on monotheism, which is one singular God. And we see this trend through Judaism, through Christianity, and through Islam. So, Abraham in the covenant. Abraham ends up leaving his community in an attempt to create a unique monotheistic society, one God society. Now, he does this because he and God form a covenant. A covenant is an agreement to obey God's laws in exchange or in return for God's protection of Jewish people. So essentially, Abraham gets into an agreement with God. And there's some details about this covenant that you should know. So, first of all, the Mosaic period, a little bit more information here. The Mosaic period that we spoke about earlier, continuing now from 1700 to 1200 BCE, is actually named after Moses. Judaism grew into 12 tribes. Um, Drought forces the Hebrew people to immigrate to Egypt, where they will be enslaved. So they are in Canaan or Israel. Drought comes in, they can't eat, there's not enough food, etc., and they are forced to immigrate and leave to Egypt. It remains this way, and they remain enslaved until Moses sets them free. Now, Moses and the law of the covenant. Moses is given the task to lead the Israelites, Hebrews, out of Egyptian captivity from God. So God has tasked him with this responsibility. God sends 12 plagues to the Egyptians to help Moses convince the Pharaoh, Ramses, that the people, God's people, should go. So, 10th plague is an angel of death. It ends up killing Ramses' son and the firstborn of all children, and he reluctantly sets the Hebrews free. The king does, that is. This mass emigration from Egypt is known as the Exodus, right? And there's also a Bible a book of the Bible in the Old Testament, which is based off this Exodus experience. It means departure. And where are they departing from? Well, Moses is setting the people free from Egypt. They're departing from Egypt. And they're traveling back to the promised land, back to Canaan, which they originally left because there was drought and not a productive land, not food and resources there. So Moses, a little bit more here. We see that during this Exodus, Moses leads the people out of Egypt. Moses parts the Red Sea for the Jewish people to leave, and Moses shares the Ten Commandments. Now, once they cross the Red Sea and Moses parts the sea, as you can see here by this wonderful illustration, they camp at Mount Sinai. Moses goes and ascends. He climbs the mountain. In this experience, he meets God. And during this interaction with God, God is said in the Bible to give him the Ten Commandments. Now, a lot of people think that God gives him the Ten Commandments through a vision or gives him the information for the Ten Commandments, and some people take it literally in the sense that God, the Ten Commandments are actually handed over. Either way, he comes down, and the Ten Commandments are with Moses. Hebrews now have the recorded set of teachings and laws so they can keep their covenant with God. And remember, this is all about the relationship and this agreement that Abraham originally had between God and God between Abraham. So the Ten Commandments are as follows. Do not worship any other gods but God alone. Do not make any idols. Do not misuse the name of God. Keep the Sabbath day holy. Man, honor your mother and father. Do not murder. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal. Do not lie. And do not covet. Well, think about it. Maybe pause this video for a moment and see, what do we notice? What trends? Have we seen any similarities here between any other religions? Where else do we see these important aspects that are in the Ten Commandments? And what is the emphasis of the Ten Commandments? So take a moment, pause the video, and answer those questions. So we have finished part one. We are now on part two, early history of Judaism. So a couple new figures here that I wanted to introduce you to and kind of give you a recap. Joshua leads the Hebrews to conquer and gain control of Canaan. So remember, Moses has led the people out of captivity in Egypt. They are traveling back towards the Holy Land, or the Promised Land, which is Canaan. And as you can tell here by this video, Egypt and the dominance here and the domain of Egypt is quite significant when you look at the small area that is Canaan. So Joshua is a key figure because he leads the Hebrew people, kind of takes on from Moses and leads the Hebrew people to conquer and gain control of Canaan once again. Saul, another major figure, united the different Jewish 12 tribes and became king. Well, who are some other notable figures? Well, King David. You might know King David from the Battle of David and Goliath, right? He was a wonderful musician and wrote the majority of the Psalms in the Bible, and also slayed Goliath in battle. So King David, he reigns for 40 years. He defeated Goliath, conquers land, and establishes Jerusalem as the capital of Canaan, the Promised Land. His son Solomon builds a great temple, which becomes a focal point for Jewish worship.